Welcome to Virtual Sea Camps. We're so excited that you joined us. We are going to be going over the field journal orientation, or the scientific method or steps that you will take in order to study the wilderness. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to need your journal and you're going to need a pen. So make sure you bring that with you, all right? Then turn to the first page and let's go over the steps that are crucial to scientists to get their data collected. And so the first part that we are going to go over is the title. So the field journal, in this case, is my title. So go ahead and put that down. The next thing is the date. The date tells you when you did your study, a crucial step. When did you do the study? The same with the time. The time is also telling you, all right, what time of day? Was it diurnal or nocturnal? Then after that, you're going to put down the location. Obviously, location goes without saying, right? Where was it that you found this study, and what part exactly was it that you actually found these animals or plants or whatever it is you're studying? Also, you're going to do, if you're studying any kind of water, you're going to do the sea conditions or the river conditions or the lake conditions. And you're going to note those as well. Crucial part of one of the steps to getting a good scientific study. Then you're going to do the weather. Of course, the weather is always changing, so you want to note what was the weather that day. Also, you want to do a character trait, because a character trait is part of what it's going to take to change our world, right? You have to have character in order to do a good science project. To follow these steps, you need character. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Then you're going to do your purpose. Why are you doing this study? What is it that is intriguing you, right? As a scientist, what do you want to learn about? Then you're going to do your hypothesis. And your hypothesis is basically a prediction of what your study is going to turn out to be. What is it that you are looking for, that you are hoping to get results? So it's like a tentative explanation for observation. And just remember, your hypothesis has to be testable and it has to be specific. Then you're going to do your data, all right, afterwards. And your data is basically a collection of facts that you're finding out there as you're studying. Okay, so next is our data. And our data is a collection of information. How much information have you gathered for your scientific method, for your study? So what I want you to think of is, as we go out in our virtual sea camps and we do different studies, what you observe while we're doing this together is what you want to put under your data, okay? So here's how you do a data chart. This is a crucial step for being a field scientist. First thing you want to do is you want to draw this chart that I just drew in your journal. Then on the first column, you're going to do name and sketch of the animal or the thing or the plant or the rock or whatever it is that you're studying, okay? You want to sketch it on this column. If you know the name, put the name. If you don't know the name, that's part of being a field biologist. The next one is description. What is this animal like? The next one is behavior. What is this animal doing? Okay? How's it acting? What is this plant doing? Now, for other things, you might not need behavior. You might do something else. And then the last thing is quantity. How many did you see? And those basically are the 4 sections of our data chart. Okay, so next is our conclusion. And our conclusion is basically a summary of all of our findings. Here I have conclusion written on our board. And the first thing you want to do is you want to list the steps that you took to get your data. So make sure that you write down the procedure that you use to collect all your data. After that, you're going to list any special observations that you found during your collection of data. So any particulars that you saw, maybe a different color or a different shape of plant or animal, all that is special observation. Then you're going to do a hypothesis, all right? You're going to take your hypothesis and you're actually going to look at it to see if it holds true or not based on your data collection. And then you are going to take the data findings and formulate a theory. And this is kind of like, the essence of your conclusion, right? You're looking at your hypothesis. Is it true or is it not true based on the data that you collected? And then you're going to look and see whether you can make an educated statement that's a theory. And so, for example, in our fish lab, we have an orange fish that's called the Garibaldi. And it would be a simple hypothesis to say that the Garibaldi is territorial. So let's just say that's my hypothesis. So if I then go out and I look for the Garibaldi and I come back and I want to make a theory based on the Garibaldi, I could say, I think that the Garibaldi is territorial because it chased away other fish. And that would be a theory that could go along with all the collection of data that you would have done for that particular lab. We are now doing the scientific method on our journals. It has 7 parts. I want to go through them really briefly. I already taught you about most of these steps, but these are the parts that actually make the scientific method. So, the first thing you want to write down in your journal is the scientific method title, okay? Then you are going to define your purpose, all right, which we already went through. Then you're going to construct your hypothesis, which we also talked about, collect your data, test your hypothesis, analyze your data, and then draw conclusions and communicate your results. Okay, here we are at the Rocky Shores, and we are now going forward with our field journal. Okay, so first thing you write down is the date, March 23rd, 2020. Then you write the time, 4:27 p.m. Then you want to put down the location, Northwest Whites Cove, Catalina Island. That's the location that I am in currently. See how specific I am? Northwest Beach. You want to do that wherever you are. Purpose is to discover what life lives on the shores of the Southern California coast. That is the purpose that I put together for my study today. Okay? Now you put one together for yours. The next thing is the weather. So as you look around you, what is the weather like? Well, I have a few scattered clouds, but mostly clear sky. That's what I'm going to put. So scattered clouds, clear sky. Then I'm going to write down my sea conditions. As I look out on the ocean, I see no waves, I see no white caps. I see mainly a calm ocean today. So I am going to put down calm, no waves. Then I have my hypothesis. This is the one, remember, that we talked about. It's an educated guess. What do you predict in your study? Here's what I wrote. Crabs will be the dominant species of organisms in these rocky shores. Again, crabs will be the dominant species of organisms in these rocky shores. Now you do an educated guess on your study today. Mine was this one. What is yours? Okay, you guys, now what we're going to do is we are going to write down our data chart. Now remember, your data chart is simple. You take a blank page, just like my board here, and you turn it sideways, okay? I'm not going to turn mine sideways, but you turn your notebook sideways, and then you divide it in half. You go like that. One time in half, all right? And then you do it again. Then you divide in half again, and divide in half again, all right? And then you make a line across the top, just like that, all right? Now we're gonna have 4 columns. We're gonna do sketch, name and sketch on the first column. Then we're gonna do description. And then we're gonna do zone. Behavior would be for a different study. Today it's gonna be zone. Then we're gonna do quantity. Okay, so the zones are basically the 4 different areas down at the shore, okay? And they're divided into four segments, all right? And so we're going to write down where you saw that animal, what area you saw it. Okay, you guys, here's my data chart, and as you can see, I have seen quite a few animals. My dominant species, the one I saw the most, was the crab. I saw 3 of those, okay? Then I have the periwinkle, which I saw 1 of those, and actually, correction, the dominant species is the limpet, because I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I saw 5 limpets. And I also saw a sea worm, and actually I saw 3 of those. So you can see that I have all these different animals that I've sketched. Then I wrote the description. I put down what tide they were in, and then I put down the quantity. All right, now with our data, let's go ahead and write a conclusion. Okay, so now we're going to write our conclusion. And our conclusion, remember, has several parts. What you did, where you did it, right? What were your findings, and what is your theory? Okay, so I have already written out my conclusion here on this board, but we're going to go through it together. First thing I did was I listed my findings. So at the rocky shore, I saw 5 limpets, 3 worms, 3 shore crabs, and 1 periwinkle. Now remember, I got this information from my data chart, okay? So when you write your first part of your conclusion, you need to look at your data chart and list what your findings were. Secondly is, how did I do this procedure? What was I doing to get these animals? I turned during my site survey, right? I turned over rocks and placed them carefully back. Now remember, any study you're doing, you want to be a good steward of the environment, right? That's really important. If you're going to pick up a rock, you need to put it back exactly the way you found it. So as you can see here, I carefully put the rocks back, turned over the rocks, and placed them carefully back. Now, I also didn't use my hands very much. I used my sight to look into crevices to find as many organisms as possible. That was key. That's how I found some of my crabs, was looking through in the crevices. Didn't have to move anything. I was just looking. Okay, the last part is the theory. Remember how we wrote a hypothesis when we first started? Well, now we're going to bring it all together in our conclusion. So the theory works this way. You look at all your data, and you put together a thought on how this data makes sense, yes or no, with your hypothesis. Okay, do you agree with your hypothesis or you disagree with your hypothesis? So, in my case, this is what I wrote for my theory. I think there was more limpets than crabs because there was a lot of algae on the rocks for the limpets to graze on. Now remember, my hypothesis was there are more crabs on the rocky shore. Here, in my theory, I am saying that I think my hypothesis is wrong because there was more limpets than crabs, and then I give a reason. What's the reason for that theory? Because there was a lot of algae on the rocks. That's what I saw, right? For the limpets to graze upon. In other words, there was more food for the limpets at the rocky shore that I was, so there wasn't any crabs. Okay, also, it's important to note that in a theory, it's exactly that. A theory has to be tested many times. So even though I wrote down what I think is the important conclusion of my findings, this has to be retested again. In other words, my hypothesis that I had was wrong. However, the theory that I put down has to be tested again and again. I would have to come down to the rocky shores many times to prove this theory to be true. Okay, so we just finished our field journal and we went through all the procedures to come to a conclusion. As a field scientist, when you're out here in the field, I just want to encourage you, do diligence to all the parts that we just went through. You can do this anywhere. Remember, you can do it at your home's backyard, you can do it up in the mountains, out in the ocean like I am, you can do it on a rocky shore, you can do it anywhere, even in the back of your garage. I'm sure there's some critters there that would love to be discovered, and I'm sure there's theories that go along with it. Stay tuned for our next lab.